Pleasant Acres does not look like a place where reality would loosen its color. It sat on a slope like a folded handkerchief, with red brick, polite hedges, and windows that reflected the sky in obedient squares. The sign out front leaned just slightly, as if tired. Pleasant Acres, Elder Care. The letters were meant to comfort. They did not mention the sounds the building made at night, its slow hinge creaks, and its soft, wheeled sighs. The way time pulled thickly in the corners. Karen worked the day shift, and the evening shift, and any shift that she needed to. Everyone agreed that she was beautiful, but not in the way that asked to be looked at. Her beauty behaved itself. It tied its hair back, it wore soft cardigans and low shoes that moved through hallways with quiet confidence of someone who belonged in all the spaces that she entered. She had a voice that could flow where fevers. When she spoke, people listened, as even if they forgot how, especially if they had forgotten how. She knew every resident by name, and every name by weight. Good evening, Mrs. Halvorson, she would say, adjusting his blanket with the careful conservator handling fragile silk touch. Mrs. Halvorson, whose spine had folded in on itself like a collapsed telescope, would look at her with the confused reverence of someone glimpsing a familiar star in the wrong sky. Oh, he would say, there you are. He never specified by who he meant, and Karen always smiled. Pleasant Acres specialized in the broken architecture of age, bent hips, withered muscles, minds that leaked, wheelchairs and walkers and beds that adjusted with electric obedience. The residents existed in various states of departure. Some had left their past behind, some had left themselves behind, some were leaving in pieces, one memory at a time. Karen attended to all of them. She fed them, washed them, she even turned them gently so their skin would not decay under its own stillness. She listened to stories that began nowhere and ended midair. She held hands that clutched her like anchors in a dissolving sea. And she loved them. That was the important part. Love made the other part possible. It began with impressions. Karen was an illusionist, though no one at Pleasant Acres would have used that word. They would have said she had a gift, a presence, a way of making things feel lighter. But illusion is not the art of creating something from nothing, it is the art of rearranging what was already there. When Mrs. Dalloway woke screaming at 2:13 a.m., convinced that she was trapped in a burning house from 1957, Karen sat beside her and placed a hand on her forehead. Listen, Karen whispered. And Miss Dalloway listened. Karen did not conjure or extinguish it. She adjusted the shape of perception. She bent the angle at which Miss Dalloway experienced the moment. The panic loosened, the fire became warmth. The warmth became memory, the memory became something distant and manageable. Miss Dalloway slept. Karen stayed behind for a while longer, watching. Because when the mind softened, it opened, and when it opened, things slipped out. Regret, fear, love, guilt, the emotional sediment of an entire life, rising like silt in disturbed water. Karen could see it, not with her eyes, but with a deeper instrument behind them. She saw the impressions people left on reality simply by existing, and she collected them, not physically, not in jars or books or bones. She collected them in herself. Pleasant Acres was full of endings, and endings were powerful. The moment before a person vanished carried density, meaning, a kind of gravitational collapse of identity, the self compressing into its most essential form, and Carrie studied those moments with devotion. She never caused them. She did not need to. Time was already doing the work for her. Miss Halvorson was the only one she stayed with until the end. He had been a machinist, a builder of precise things. Even as his body failed, his hands still moved in small phantom calibrations, adjusting invisible mechanisms. On his final night, he looked at them and looked at Karen with a sudden clarity. There you are, she said again. Karen took his hand. She did not speak. Words could interfere. As his breathing slowed, the room changed, not visibly, structurally. The boundary between what was and what had been began to blur. His life pressed inward, collapsing toward a point. Karen leaned closer. She felt it then. The impression of him, the total shape of his existence, not as facts, but as weight, as emotional geometry. She did not take it. She let it pass through her. This was the distance between theft and witnessing. When he was gone, she closed his eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. Not to him, to the moment. After that, her practice deepened. In the basement of Pleasant Acres, there was a maintenance room no one used. The air was thick and still, undisturbed by routine. Karen had claimed it quietly, incrementally, the way moss claims stone. She did her work there, not with candles or chants, not in theatrical stories, as the way they preferred. Real magic was quieter. It was alignment, attention, precision. She replayed impressions. She reshaped them. She learned how fear curved, how love anchored, how regret lingered like a fingerprint on the structure of reality. She practiced illusions not to deceive, but to influence the emotional weather of the world. Upstairs, residents who had been agitated became calm. Pain receded at the edges, and loneliness thinned. Karen never took more than she could hold with care, because she did care. This was the contradiction that defined her. Her magic fed on endings, but her intention was mercy. She used the gravity of death to soften the experience of the living. She borrowed the density of final moments to stabilize those still drifting. To Pleasant Acres, she was a nurse. To the residents, she was comfort. To herself, in the still silent basement, she was something older, a practicer of illusion and a practitioner of impression.